Simple words, Zelensky got a taste of reality. He made 3 strategic miscalculations. Number 1, he overestimated Western support. Number 2, he oversold Ukraine's importance to the West. And number 3, he misread Putin's real intentions. We'll take them one by one. Zelensky knew that Ukraine was no match for Russia. It was evident for everyone watching the situation. The army, the finances, everything was stacked against him. But Zelensky thought he had a trump card, the West. And he had good reason to think so. Joe Biden refused to guarantee Ukraine's neutrality. He refused to pull back from NATO's eastern flank. Instead, he expanded military assistance. He flooded Ukraine with lethal weapons. Clearly, Biden was invested in the fight. The question was, how invested? Listen into what Zelensky said on the 1st of September last year, weeks before the Russian build-up began.
I feel that President Biden, well, not only do I feel, I heard that he personally supports Ukraine on the issue of granting NATO membership. But it's hard for me to tell what the path is going to be like.
This was September 2021. In fact, let's go back further to April 2021. That was Russia's first military build-up. Back then, Zelensky seemed very confident of America's support. Listen to what he said.
President Biden assured me that Ukraine will never be left alone against Russian aggression.
Ukraine will never be left alone. April 2021, that was Biden's promise. So naturally, Zelensky hoped for big things. He thought the military aid was just the start, that more would come, more help. But he was wrong. Military aid was NATO's maximum limit. They refused to go beyond that. No soldiers on the ground, no no-fly zones, nothing that would pit them against Russia. Same with sanctions. It's day 14 of the invasion and Europe is still buying Russian oil and gas. The fact is, the West led Ukraine on. They refused to compromise. They promised all the support, but when the time came, NATO stood back and watched. Miscalculation number 2, Zelensky overestimated Ukraine's importance to the West. It was evident in his words. He called Ukraine the shield of Europe. Listen to this.
For 8 years, Ukraine has been a shield. For 8 years, Ukraine has been holding back one of the greatest armies in the world, which stands along our borders, not the borders of the European Union. And the missile systems flew to Mariupol, not to European cities. These events confirm that comprehensive security in Europe is impossible if Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity is not restored.
Again, he was wrong. Ukraine was expendable for the West. They were not serious about the NATO membership. They were not serious about the sanctions. For them, Ukraine was just a useful tool. Something to irritate Vladimir Putin, that's all. But that useful tool had an expiry date. It was February 24th when Russia invaded. And this has happened before. Think back to Afghanistan in the 1980s. America funded the Mujahideen to fight the Soviet army. Was it because Afghanistan was strategically important for the West? No, it wasn't. The sole objective was to give the Soviets a bloody nose. Afghanistan was also a useful tool for the Americans. Same with Georgia. America armed them in the late 2000s. They trained Georgian soldiers. They promised NATO membership in the future. But when war broke out, NATO recoiled. Zelensky made that very same mistake. He believed that Ukraine was a key strategic asset for NATO. He was wrong. For NATO, Ukraine was just another pawn. Miscalculation number 3. Zelensky failed to read Putin's mind. On this, you cannot really blame him. Until the last moment, nobody thought there would be a war. There would be threats, some saber rattling perhaps, but eventually Russia would pull back. That was a conventional wisdom. Even as late as January 28, Zelensky did not buy the war hysteria. This is what he said.
The feeling from the media is that we have a war. We have troops on the roads, we have mobilization, people are going somewhere. It does not. We do not need this panic.
In hindsight, should he have prepared better? Should he have considered Putin's proposals more seriously? Perhaps he should. But put yourself in Zelensky's boots. You have the world's most powerful military alliance promising support. You have lethal weapons pouring in every day. You have promises of unprecedented sanctions on Russia. It is not surprising that Zelensky decided to fight. The West promised him sovereignty. but they refuse to fight for it, and history will judge him for that. All this Twitter fanfare, all this YouTube glory will disappear. What will remain is this: